Times go next door to have lunch as well. I'm Ken Gill. I'm the first Deputy Commissioner at the Chicago Commission on Human Relations. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining our panel today to hear about community-based responses to hate crimes. We have had one change in our panel. Mr. Michael Kempen became ill and will not be able to join us. Okay? But that's okay. We still have Ms. Jennifer Scott in the middle from the Commission on Human Relations. Jennifer is the Intergroup Relations Specialist for the Commission. We have Eileen Hogan-Heineman from the Racial Justice Director from the YWCA Evanston North Shore. And of course, you've all heard from Ms. Shirley Birdsong earlier. She has graciously agreed at the last minute to join us on the panel. So what we're going to do, we're going to open up for a few minutes from each of our panelists to do a short presentation. I have a few questions that I will start to get the program going, get the discussion going. But at any time, raise your hand if you have a question. We'll just bring you in and get you started. Okay? Okay, first, we'd like to hear from Jennifer Scott. Jennifer?
Hi, welcome. Thank you all for coming. As well, I was just sharing with Ms. Birdsong how moving her story is and how appreciative we are of people that have come before us that have done this work and that have been on the front lines of change and justice and supporting and advocating for victims of bias-motivated crimes. So I have some big shoes to follow, and at the Commission there have been a number of people, Pablo Medina, who has been the director for over 20 years, footsteps to follow, and many others at the Commission doing this important work. So thank you to all of you for the work that you do in this area. My name is Jennifer Scott. I've been at the Commission on Human Relations for about 10 years. I was an educator for about 28 years before that, and I'm an artist in the Chicago community. So I bring education, activism, and a desire to continue to strengthen relations and break down barriers and help people figure out how to communicate with each other. It's actually been a passion of mine for a very long time. So I'm very grateful to be here at the Commission. So I'm going to talk, and I know I can be a little long-winded, and I know Ken has his minutes, so that if you see him flashing numbers at me, I'll try and speed up. There are a number of things I want to share. I want to talk a little bit about intergroup relations and what we do. And then I want to talk about 3 or 4 scenarios that are truly were collaborative efforts in the community to work with victims of bias-motivated community tensions. So at the Commission, we have adjudicators that investigate public and housing, public accommodation, and employment discrimination cases. And our area, intergroup relations, we respond to hate crimes and community tensions. I do more of the community tensions, and we have a colleague that works primarily on hate crimes, but we often overlap because what has been shared earlier is that not every hate crime actually gets to be a bona fide hate crime. It's often unfounded and there are other circumstances, so it doesn't actually go all the way through the court process. So we collaborate on a number of cases. So intergroup relations, we diffuse community tensions. So anybody can call us for supports. Aldermen often call us, CAPS can call us, commanders can call us, residents themselves can call us, business owners often call us when they have tensions in the community, principals, teachers, the list goes on and on. Anybody can call us, we are a free service. So we advocate for victims of bias-motivated crimes. We build relationships which have been talked about already, cultural understanding, racial understanding, and ethnic understanding between communities and residents. And we foster an opportunity for Chicagoans to come together to share their stories. I have been doing peace circles for about the past 4 or 5 years, and that's all about sharing your story and getting and hearing somebody else's story so you find the commonalities instead of focusing on the differences. When we're focusing on the differences, it's you and them, us and myself. I don't have to connect with you, and there is the beginning of the divide, let alone throwing in a conflict in a situation. I get the pleasure of working with many community leaders who are on the front lines doing a variety of things to support victims. That is probably one of the most inspiring things about the work that I do. I get to be be out in the field interacting directly with leaders trying to do this work, anti-violence work, anti-race-based work, and a number of other areas in our communities. Everybody is to be commended for the efforts that they put into this work. We address bullying with adults and children, and we also strengthen relationships between businesses. And we all know that Chicago is extremely segregated in a number of ways. Businesses in different communities have their own sets of tension, so we try and work diligently to help residents support businesses and businesses to understand and support residents, and it can be challenging at times. The tools that I use in our department are mediation, direct mediation. I've been trained through the Center for Conflict Resolution. I mediate in their courts once a month, and I also do mediation door-to-door, knock on door A, knock on door B. We go in impartial to hear what the story is, what the conflict is, which is never the conflict that, is fueling it. It's just what gets the phone call to our office. And we use the analogy of peel the onion back to find out what is really going on between these two families and try to get both of them, once after they vent, to be able to sit down at the table. And we've been successful, I would say about 65, 70% of the time. Sometimes families just want to live in misery and they create their own nightmare, and there's nothing you can do, no resources, no opportunities that's going to change that dynamic. But for the most part, you can interrupt the tension and keep things from escalating. And if people agree to disagree and leave each other alone, then it's a success. Then we have those cases where we get repeat customers, and those are another story. I use conflict resolution, and peace circles have really taken off with restorative justice. How many people here have actually experienced a peace circle or know what a peace circle is? Raise your hand. Okay, good. Almost just about half. One of the things that I mentioned earlier about the sharing our stories is that it forces us to listen to each other, particularly with youth, but even with adults. We don't spend enough time listening. We're either on our devices, we're either talking over each other, we're thinking about something else. When you're in a circle, you are accountable to everybody in the group. Everybody is equal, you have eye contact, and you get to react and respond to somebody's emotions. You don't just discount what somebody is feeling in the circle. You stop and address it. And I think it's critical for youth to be able to acknowledge how they are affecting and what they're saying is doing to somebody else. Because so often, right now, the climate is hiding behind the Facebook and the nasty things in cyberspace. And there have been some interesting cases I've been involved in with youth that have just been horrendous things on Facebook. So that's another way of, again, hearing your story, being accountable, and all being equal in a circle. The other area, along with the victim advocacy, where we support victims who are possible victims of hate crimes, we will go to court with them, we'll drive to court with them, make sure that they don't fall through the cracks of the assistant state's attorney, do the very best that we can to make sure that we have some kind of justice is done for them and some kind of positive outcome. The last area are the task forces. We have had some, we were talking about building relations, some task forces connected with the Commission on Human Relations for over 15 years. These are some activists in the community that have believed deeply in the power of people. And we have 3 active on the south side and 1 active on the north side. My colleague, who may or may not be here, has a task force, the North Side Task Force. These task force members are the eyes and ears of the community. They care deeply about what people experience in the community. They not only care, they will go the extra mile to do vigils on their front lawn to make sure they stay safe when the situation has escalated. They will show up in court and support and hold the victim's hand. They will invite the victim to talk at meetings and at community forums about their experiences, and then they will strategize to make sure, to the best of their ability, that it doesn't happen again. They are invaluable to us and the Commission and the work that we do. They are the front lines, the grassroots. Those are the people, along with the other community leaders, that you want to get to know if you're trying to address issues in your community. So the other areas, and I'm just going to be brief on this and then go into a few scenarios. We do diversity training, conflict resolution training, anger management, cultural sensitivity, stereotype, bullying, and a new area, or not new, but an area that's been developed is the disability enforcement for businesses. There are many disabled individuals who do not have access to businesses, and the Commission has put a concerted effort into helping businesses understand what their roles and responsibilities and rights are. So that's another area that we focus on. So I mentioned about who can call us for supports. We often work a lot with CHA, who have a number of challenges with communities, residents, and then also families being moved into communities for a better experience from the CHA high-rises, but not every community is welcoming to CHA residents. So we've often worked with CHA to try and, we would like to do more frontline work before the family is moved into a community where a crisis develops. But when a family does move in, we do try and work diligently with CHA to find another community or work with that community to be more accepting of families. So that, I've had some interesting cases around that. And then the last thing I want to touch on with businesses, I know a number of cases have come up with businesses in relations in the community. So one of the things that was talked on earlier are perceptions. What is the perception of the business and business owner? What are the perceptions of the residents of the businesses? And then what's taking place in between both those perceptions? So we work very hard to increase awareness and experiencing of each other's world, so to speak. So one case I'll talk about, there was a Korean hair salon business on the south side, and I'm going to change locations and I'm not going to give names to protect the innocent and all that. A woman that worked at one of the alderman's offices on the south side, she frequented this hair salon numerous times. She was a good customer. This one particular time, she had an aspirin bottle that set off the alarm going into the store. Well, the store owners, the employees, locked the door. They turned her bag over, searched her bag, and they physically searched her. And they detained her for 20 minutes, and it took about 25 minutes before the police came. Well, of course, that situation came to us. We were able to, after we did our initial investigation into who was there, what were the circumstances, it didn't rise the level of a hate crime, but it definitely was a community tension. So we were able to go in, we had one of my colleagues go in and just kind of be somebody in the store and kind of scoping things out while I went up and talked to the store owners. Found out who the employee was. We were able to talk to the employee, offer training and sensitivity training to the owners and the employee. But more important, we had a mediation between the victim and the owners. The victim came to find out the owners, the Korean owners, had been there for 20 years. They donated over $25,000 worth of money in scholarship to the community. They had investors interested in the community. Their perception is that, oh no, these owners just come in and take our money. And then the victim, the owners were able to understand from the victim's perspective, who was African American, what her experience was like in the store, that she had been a valued customer, and that there was an intense need for education in that particular store with the employees. So we had a wonderful mediation, and they're not all, happiness and roses at the end, but this particular one, both came away with a deeper appreciation of each other, and that the woman continued to shop in the store. So again, it goes back to building those relationships, strengthening those relationships, hearing each other's story and experiences. I didn't even see this. I don't know. Okay.
She ignores me all the time.
Okay, I'll be quick because there's one other and very involved case that I wanted to share. Again, it goes back to building those relationships. There was a Latino family who the mother had HIV. Somehow it came out, it got out in the community, I think from the children, that she had HIV. The neighbors next door also had a daughter that went to the same elementary school. Started out with both girls. One of the girls was doing nasty things on Facebook for the younger, for the other daughter of the other family. That's kind of how we got the phone call. It turned out that there were 26 phone calls to the police about bias-motivated violence against this family. The family had their picture living room window broken, their garage was burned down, there were several assaults on the property, all due to the next-door neighbors who did not want this family with HIV to be involved on their block. There were 18 families. Half of the families were against the family, half the families were with the alleged offenders. We also had alleged gang activity and an alleged drug house involved. So this is one long street in Chicago, 18 families. The motivation of the half of the group perpetrating offenses on the family was directly related to one of the protected classes, which is disability. So along with a number of knocking on doors, investigating, talking to each of those families, we had the CPD involved, the Civil Rights Unit, the gang involved, the gang unit, the principals at the elementary school dealing with both of the young girls who were going at each other on Facebook and being inappropriate at school. We got the local priest involved. They had gone through the court systems and were mandated to have mediation. That didn't work. Our office tried to bring more mediation. We had the psychiatrist for one of the families because she had mental health disability, a noted, documented mental health disability. I also think the other woman had some mental health issue challenges. And then we worked with the assistant state's attorney because things got so bad that I worked very hard to get the mom and daughter out of Chicago, that the violence had increased to that level. So for a period of one summer, I helped talk to the families in Texas to get this family to stay with them. They ended up not staying longer than the summer, but it was still a reprieve from what some of that tension was, and it was enough to die down, so our office kept getting phone calls. But that was one of the more involved cases that involved 18 residents, 26 police reports. We had 18 community meetings. There gang involvement and the unit who deals with the drugs in the community. So that was a very involved collaborative effort. So don't be afraid to reach out to other agencies, city offices, schools, priests. You don't know who's going to touch the people who are either the alleged victims or the offenders to try and solve a solution. So if you have any questions afterwards, I know, time is up. I have to like walking across so I can see it. I'm happy to talk more with you, help you strategize. If you would like me to come and do trainings on mediation, conflict resolution, or any of the other trainings, please let me know afterwards. I'll be happy to follow up.